Hey, what's up, everybody? It's the Hyphenate here, and today we're talking about the flat earth theory. Now, to some people, it might be something that they're hearing for the first time. For many people out there, you've already heard about this. You might even know a lot more than I personally know. It's something that is going around like wildfire right now all over the internet, and a lot of people are saying that it's factual. Now, I personally don't really know, although I personally don't believe that the earth is flat. But I do have a special guest here today that I'm going to speak to that is a flat earth expert. And before I introduce him, let me just start off by saying that I think it's great that different people with different ideologies and belief systems can come together and have a conversation. So today's guest is David Weiss. He's a longtime truth seeker. He's the host of the former Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole podcast. He started out with exposing the Federal Reserve fraud system. He then started exposing the lies of 9/11, the lies of the mainstream medical mafia. Then came all the hoax shooting events and the greatest deception of all, which is the truth that the world we live on and who we really are. He's currently the host of the Flat Earth podcast, and he's all around a good guy. Now, this is a bio he sent me, but from all the conversations I've had with him, he does seem to be a good guy. This is David Weiss. How you doing, David? Oh, by the way, he's on a Skype call right now. So if you guys see me looking this way, it's because I'm actually talking to him here. So David Weiss, how you doing, David?
I'm doing well, man. How are you? And do you have a nickname, or is it the Hyphenate all the way through?
You can just call me Hyph to make it short.
Hyph? Okay.
Yeah, to make it easier. Sometimes the syllables, for 3 syllables or 4 syllables with the gets to be a little long. So yeah, go ahead and call me Hyph.
Looking forward to this discussion, and I just like to open up by saying that belief is the enemy of knowing. I believe a lot of things. I know other things. So belief, you have to look at what you believe and ask yourself, why do you believe it? So let's start from
I
there.
definitely agree with that. And I know that I know nothing. That's pretty much one thing for me is I'm a very open-minded individual. Though I have a certain belief system, if I get new information or if something makes sense, then it can very well be factual. I'm not a closed-minded person, so I'm definitely looking forward to this conversation. So let's start off by you telling me kind of how you got into, or how long ago, and what got you into the flat earth theory, and then, we can go, I have some questions for you that I want to ask you that can help illuminate some of the, I guess, misconceptions or maybe some of the things that make people believe that it's not true. So before I get into those questions, let us know a little bit about how you fell into this belief system or ideology.
I did Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole podcast for 3 years, exploring all sorts of deceptions that have been cast over mankind. And over the course of that 3 years, in the third year, a few people started sending me flat earth stuff. Hey, have you looked into the flat earth? And with all the messages I get, delete. People started sending me them multiple times. You got to look at this. You got to look at this. Watch this 1-minute video. Delete. Banned from social media. I stopped them from posting. I wouldn't watch a 1-minute video because I have an open mind. I'm open to all of these things except flat earth. Utter nonsense. I refused to even look. Then I was having a conversation with a well-known researcher. If you're in the alternative news realm, which is Sophia Smallstorm, and she at the end of our conversation, I said, "It's so amazing all of these deceptions that are being cast over the population of the world." And she goes, "Oh, David, it's worse than you imagine. I think the earth might be flat." And meanwhile, I had just spent the last half an hour banning people from social media for even suggesting that.
Right.
And I'm like, what do you mean? So I said, that's it. I'm going to dig into this and put this to rest. And for 2 weeks, day and night, I researched. At the end of that 2 weeks, I knew one thing for sure, is that we weren't on a spinning ball flying through space as told. I didn't know what it was. And over time, what you discover is the earth is observably and obviously flat.
So quick question. What was the name of your podcast you said you had for 3 years?
Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, still up on SoundCloud, gotcha. iTunes. It was the 2 truth seekers, myself and my sidekick Tim, and then a comedian who was the devil's advocate, Mike Cannon. talented comedian who just basically we almost fought many times on the show, and people loved it. It drove me crazy. After 3 years, the Flat Earth actually killed the podcast because he could not open his mind to it.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So you started really diving into all types of different, what people would call conspiracy theories, and this one is the one that kind of is now been your primary focus, or do you still like look through a lot of other theories?
So I look at the other theories, but it all started with 9/11, and my experience through that. That could be a conversation for another time if we talk again.
Definitely
it'll just take up all the time.
Right? Yeah. That was actually the first kind of theory that kind of I came across that made me question and open my mind as well.
Yeah. So that kind of woke me up, and when the flat Earth came up, I was like, well, what about boats going over the curvature? What about circumnavigation? What about, why doesn't water fall off the edge? How come we can't see England? All of the basic questions.
Right.
And then when I kept getting answered with, wow, I never thought of that. That makes total sense. I get it now. And then I do what everyone does, which was, well, what difference does it make? Flat or round? How's that going to change my life? I still have to go to work. I still have to do everything that I used to do. How is that going to change my life? And then when I really started looking into it and realized how if you don't know where you are, if you think you are an insignificant speck that happened when nothing exploded and then a monkey essentially farted and there's humans, if that's where you think you are, how are you ever going to go anywhere? How are you going to know? The deception is the reason that they hide the flat Earth is because when you wake up to the truth of the Earth, the world that we live in, you now know that you are not this insignificant speck floating in a random universe, and you realize that you are far more powerful than the elite want you to know. The elite want to keep us in a state of sickness, and fear, a low vibration of fear.
And
they want to keep us away. Yeah, they want to keep us away from raising our vibration and becoming and expressing the true, powerful, spiritual beings that we truly are.
And you know what? That was a question that I was going to eventually ask you, but you've already answered it, which is awesome. And that's something that for me for a while, every time I've had conversations about the flat Earth theory, is just like, what is the purpose? What is the reason? And that reason actually makes a lot of sense. The idea that they don't want us to know how important we are. So then we feel like we're nothing, so we don't challenge them. That is very systematically, it could very well be a thing, especially when you consider the systematic oppression that's happened over the last, 400 or 500 years as technology and stuff has kind of made us more aware. They're trying to find more ways to suppress us.
It gets even deeper than that. That's just part of the reason. Where was I going with that? They also could be hiding more land. There could be other continents out there that are hidden in the outer southern waters. There could be lands beyond the shoreline of Antarctica. We don't know because we're not allowed to go there. The Antarctic Treaty, every nation that's involved with the UN has signed the Antarctic Treaty. Through all these times of war and all these conflicts, everyone agrees that nobody, including corporations, can go to Antarctica except on a little edge sightseeing tour, which costs a ton of money. And you can't even question the treaty until the year 2040. That is impossible to be real. I mean, it's a real treaty, but the fact that it's in place is beyond belief. Yeah,
I am not 100% familiar with the treaty, but from what I've read, what I've gathered, there's a huge part of Antarctica that we are not allowed to go to, and that itself is suspicious. So that can definitely coincide with everything that you're saying, and it definitely makes sense. So before we kind of get into a few more questions, one thing that I've kind of come across is that certain flat Earth believers have different perspectives as to the type of flat Earth that we live on. So I want to get your perspective. or maybe you know what it really is as opposed to some of the people I've talked to. I've heard that we are on a circle flat Earth. I've heard that we are on a more rectangular flat Earth. I've heard that there are one of the versions is that the Earth is flat, but we have a dome over us, and so like the sun and things like that are not real. They're projections or screens. So from what you've gathered, what is the kind of, the Earth really like for us?
So here's one thing. We don't know everything. We know as much as we know, and we know what's not true.
And real quick, before you continue, there are times where like the people that really shut down flat earthers say like, oh, well, if they don't know, why are they talking? First and foremost, even if for all these years that we've believed that the earth is spherical, there's a lot we still don't know, and we openly admit that we don't know. So the idea that people that believe that the earth is flat don't have all the answers is okay.
Now, they've had a ton of time to build this alternative reality to fool us with. We've only been doing this for the last 4 years, essentially, when Flat Earth kind of had an awakening in 2012, or maybe 6 years. There's a lot of different theories on how the Earth is. One thing it's not is a flat world floating in a heliocentric universe with other planets out there. Why are other planets around and we're not? Well, we don't know.
That was a question I was going to bring to you, is that if from some people that I've talked to, it's like, oh, well, the sun is spherical, the other planets are spherical, but not our planet. So you're saying that nothing is like what we actually
You have to
told.
erase everything. The only pictures of planets that we have are from two sources. One of them more credible than the other, and that's NASA and Disney, with Disney being the more credible source. If you look at, just Google NASA picture of Pluto, the planet Pluto. Well, they grabbed a full picture of Pluto with this spacecraft that's whizzing by at ridiculous speeds, and if you look at it, there's actually an outline of the Disney character Pluto on the planet. It's unbelievable. Just look it up. It'll come up and you'll see it. It's pretty undeniable. We have pictures of Saturn. We have pictures of Mars. We've all seen them. And NASA will even admit none of them they never use the word photograph. They use the word image and picture because they're artist renditionings. They're paintings, they're CGI, and they don't have a photograph of Earth. They even admit that the blue marble shot that we all saw on our iPhone, that's in every textbook, is created from high-altitude airplanes taking pictures and stripping those pictures together in Photoshop and putting them over a sphere. There are no photos of Earth. If the Earth was a sphere and the moon was a place that we actually went to, we supposedly have a rover on Mars, which is absolutely ridiculous. Why don't they put a camera on the moon, which always has the same size facing Earth? They could have a live stream of Earth going. They wouldn't even have to pay for it because there would be corporate sponsors that would have their logo on there, and it would pay for the whole thing. We could watch the Earth spin. We could watch storm systems. We could watch everything in real time, but they won't because they can't. The moon is not a place that you can go. It's not a rock in space. If you woke up tomorrow and knew nothing about heliocentrism. Heliocentrism is the ball Earth, world that we're supposedly live in, and looked up into the sky. Not in a million years would you say, oh, that moon is 238,000 miles away. It's right there within our sky. Getting back to your question, does the Earth have a dome over it? Isn't it extended plane that goes on forever? We don't know because we're not allowed to go there. It appears from most of the evidence that we see that we are in some sort of a dome, not like a building, or some people say it's made like of glass. Some people say there is no barrier, but it's an electromagnetic barrier. We don't know what it is, but there does appear to be some sort of a dome over us, and that space is essentially water. Yeah,
Water
a water's
above
above
us?
and a water's below. Now, let me tell you, I don't come from a religious mindset at all, biblical in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, during my rabbit hole years, if somebody brought up the Bible, I discounted everything they say. Okay, but I find the Bible is interesting because it says in, I believe it's Genesis, I can't believe I'm quoting a Bible verse because it's just so on me, God separated the waters from the waters. And if you think about when you're boiling a pot of water, and if you look in as the bubble starts to form on the bottom, that's holding the water away from the land, and there's no real barrier. What is holding that? That's a pressurized system that if you were a tiny little bug in that bubble, that would be your world. And where the bubble touches the pan all the way around, that's the edge of Antarctica. Antarctica, the common belief is that Antarctica is the shoreline that surrounds our oceans. It's not a continent at the bottom of a ball. It's essentially
It's like our perimeter.
it's essentially the world is a giant lake, a big, fairly circular lake. Okay, so when people say, "Well, why don't you go to the edge and fall off? How come you jump off the edge?" Well, can you go to the edge of a lake and jump off? You can't. Because the edge of the lake holds in all the waters. Well, Antarctica is the highest land on Earth, and it surrounds our oceans. In the middle of this ocean pond, we'll call it, we have all the continents, okay? And in the very center of this lake is the North Pole, the magnetic North Pole. So if you're out on one of these islands in the lake, right? We're thinking small here, and you break out a compass. The compass is going to point towards the magnetic pole in the middle of the lake. You with me? Right?
Yeah.
So the compass will point towards the middle no matter where you are. So if you want to go east or west, you have to stay the same distance from the north and make a circle around it. Now that is true on a flat Earth and on a ball Earth. East and west are circles around magnetic north. Okay, so you can go east and keep going, and you're making a circle, and you're going to come right back to where you started. You go west, same thing. Now people say, well, that's not true in reality. When you're flying east or west or on a ship, it's going dead reckoning. It's not. They're correcting. And if you just get a globe, put your finger on New York, and try to draw a straight line east or west, you can't. If you go straight line, you'll end up in Antarctica because a straight line will go south.
Axis of the globe.
Yeah. The only place you can go in a straight line on a globe and get back east or west is exactly on the equator. And then you'll make your full circle. But if you're above the equator anywhere, you have to constantly correct to the north. If you're below the equator, you'd have to constantly correct to the south if you're on a ball. However, there are many ship's captains that have been traveling in the south of the equator that are trying to dead reckon east or west at 90 degrees or 270 degrees, and they notice that they have to constantly make slight corrections to the north, and they just write it off to wind currents, water currents, but in reality, they're just correcting their course on this big circle that they're making. What goes in towards the flat Earth versus the ball Earth is nobody has ever circumnavigated the world heading south, going down under Antarctica and coming back up the other side. Nobody has ever done it. There's only, I think, 2 people that claim they did it, but if you look at the actual details, they went from place to place. Then they went to Antarctica. They turned around and went back to South America and then up to the North Pole, and they called that circumnavigation. That's not circumnavigation. They went out to the...
So they haven't gone across the entire land.
They didn't and come up the other
Antarctica.
side. If think about this. This is... I say things fall into 3 categories. You make 3 baskets, and you're trying to determine whether the Earth is flat or round. 3 baskets. Only works on a ball Earth, only works on a flat Earth, or works on both, just like traveling east and west. And what you'll find out is nothing ever falls into the only works on a ball Earth basket. And after a while, you have to just scratch your head and say, I wonder why that is. If you think...
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. It's definitely making me think a lot.
See, here's the other thing. I could tell you that I'm an MD. I'm a doctor. And you could say, oh, cool. And your day's done. You can go do whatever you want. You go play basketball. You go out to lunch, whatever you want. You don't have to do anything else. And you've taken that in as a belief. because I'm a trusty guy. I sound pretty good, and all right, he's a doctor. That's interesting. But then you could say, wait a minute. I want to know the truth. I'm not saying he's wrong, but I want to know the truth. You have to look me up, figure out what school they went to. You have to call the school. You have to, explain why you're asking. You have to try to find my credentials, and you'll find out I'm not a doctor. That takes time and effort. And they don't teach us how to do that in school. In school, they tell us what to think, not how to think. They say great minds think alike,
and memorize the information, and
don't question it because the science is already settled. Well, here's the best argument that ballers have. Well, there's so much science that says the Earth is a ball, but when you ask them for one proof, they can never come up with one. Not one.
So when you say they can't come up with a proof, how wouldn't seasons kind of fall into the spherical?
Yeah, so that's seasons are my favorite of all. Seasons absolutely don't work on a ball Earth at all, but we are programmed from a very young age to believe that the tilt of the Earth, okay, think about this. They tell us when the upper part of the north is tilted towards the sun, we have these more direct rays on our hemisphere. And then 6 months later, when we're on the other side of the sun and we're tilted away, that same sunlight is spread over a greater area, and there's our winter. It's just the tilt.
Right.
If you think about that, when the sun rises every morning, that is the most severe angle. That's a 90-degree tilt away from the sun when the sun first pops up in the morning, right? That's more than the 34-degree tilt of the Earth. And on June 21st in the Northern Hemisphere, which is the summer solstice. Yeah, it's the summer solstice. Yeah. That's when the sun appears on the horizon. If you go to the beach in the morning, watch the sun come up. As soon as you see the sun and you look at it, you could feel that heat penetrating on your face. Now, the sun is only like 2 degrees off the horizon. It's just on a clear day. It's just there, and you could feel that heat. 6 months later, on December 21st, you go out at high noon when the sun is at its highest point in the sky. Let's say it's 60 degrees off the horizon, which is a much more direct angle. You can't even feel the heat on your face. And that disproves seasons right there. Also, if you think about it, 6 months apart at equal latitudes, south and north, they should have around the same amount of wildlife and plant life and human life and weather, because you have the opposite season is supposedly happening. But at 60 degrees north, there's animals and trees and plants and there's a lot going on. At the same degree in the south, there's nothing. There's absolutely no animals. There's no trees. You can't make Captain Cook said you can't find enough of a plant to make a toothpick. And that lines up with the flat Earth model. The way seasons work is very simple. If you look at the flat Earth, you got your North Pole in the center. The next ring is the Tropic of Cancer, which is the circle the sun makes in June, and it's over the inner northern hemiplane, I call it. Then 3 months later, the sun makes wider and wider circles. It's out over the equator now. And 3 months later, in December, it's out over the Tropic of Capricorn. And it's farther from us. So we have shorter days because it sets due to perspective. The outer southern continents, South America, Africa, and Australia, the sun is closer to them, and they're having their summer. It's kind of like a heat lamp. It's the distance the sun is from you. In the flat Earth model, the sun is very close. It's just over our flat Earth, and it's very low. And it's not a burning ball of hydrogen. Sorry for being so long-winded.
Oh, no worries. It's very good information. Definitely. I mean, I like that you have things to actually say that can truly counter what we've been told. One, makes me want to research more, and hopefully the people out there as well. So I think it's better than you kind of just saying, oh, well, seasons can work a flat Earth and not have an answer. So thank you for that.
let me
But
just say one thing,
now,
and go. Then you go to the next question. Is people say, where do you get your research? YouTube, and YouTube is just a hosting site for information. Everything is on there. I defy you to find anything true or false that's not on YouTube. Okay, so that
that's true.
that excuse is ridiculous. So there's a video on there called Arctic versus Antarctic Seasons Explained, which is a great video. All of these videos, the good videos and the things that I'm talking about are on our Facebook page and our website, The Flat Earth Podcast, which is theflatearthpodcast.com.
And what I'll have you do is I'll have you send me those links so I could put them in the description. Okay. So for those of you guys watching this, you guys want to check out more information about all these parts that he's talking about, just click
there
on
you
the
go.
links.
All the things I'm talking about, I'll link to those specific videos. And again, it takes time and effort to really learn the truth and unlearn the indoctrination. Go ahead.
Right. My question really quick on the part that you're talking about with the sun and then having less heat at times and it disproving seasons. Kind of going back, I'm not sure if you have an answer for this or not, but what is our sun then? Is it if we're enclosed or if it's not this spherical ball of gas? What is the sun to us?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. Nobody really knows. Nobody's been there. The whole thing with the sun is 93 million miles away, and we're in the Goldilocks zone where it's just warm enough. But, the question is, in the heliocentric model, how does that heat go through the vacuum of space? How does it translate to us? It's all nonsense. So what is the sun? What we're finding now is you can't triangulate the position of the sun. You're in LA, I'm on the East Coast. And if we both tried to triangulate the sun, it wouldn't work because we both see the sun in a different position. The sun is a focused point of light from somewhere outside of what we see in the sky. And I'll give you an example of how that can work. So here's a little experiment that you can do in your mind or do it yourself. So you're in a big room. You and I are in a room, and we're going to divide the room with a light blue sheer linen sheet. Okay, and so we hang that across the room. And now we're both on the same side of the sheet, with our backs to the wall, and you're on one side of the wall, and I'm on the other side of the room, and we're looking at the sheet. Across the room, on the other side of the sheet, we have a bright light. We'll call that the sun. Okay? Now, you're going to see that's a bright spot on the sheet in a different position than I'm going to see a bright spot on the sheet. Like if we had a third person in the room that walked up to the sheet and said, "Where do you see the bright spot on the sheet?" He's going to put a little X on the sheet, and it's going to be, you're on the left side of the room, so it's going to be, off to the left side of the sheet. I'm on the right side of the room. I'm going to see that same exact thing on another spot on the sheet. We're both seeing the same sun in two positions. If you and I went to the beach and we were a mile apart on the beach and the sun is setting, you're going to see that line of sun walking across the water to your feet, and I'm going to see it walking to my feet. If you were 10 feet to my right, you're going to see it go to your feet. I'm going to see it go to my feet. The optics of the sky are beyond what most people can understand, but it appears that we all see the sun in a unique position. Remember when you were a kid, you say, "Why is the moon and the sun following me?" When you're in the car on the highway, it looks like it's following you. It kind of is. Its position is unique to your view. When you see,
so how do you explain day and night?
Day and night it's once you see it. There again, the videos. I'll link a video that shows day and night. Okay. But the sun is, again, relatively close. The sun that we see is relatively close. As it moves across the sky, it drops due to perspective. And then the atmosphere is the thickest at the bottom, and it becomes opaque. I actually was able to, and so from a terrestrial perspective, watching a celestial object, it moves and it appears to set beyond a what I call an opaque atmospheric deck of opacity. So I've actually proven this by, on a super clear, cold, zero humidity day, I put my drone up at 500 meters and watched the sunset. And what happened was you see the sun dropping and dropping and dropping, and then it gets to the horizon and it just sits there because it's no longer dropping due to perspective, and it shrinks and shrinks, and then all of a sudden, before it shrinks to a dot like you would expect on a flat Earth as the sun's moving away, it disappears into the density of the air. It just fades out. It's on my DITRH YouTube channel, and there's a playlist called Sun Fade Out, and I'll give you the links to those.
So is that saying that the sun is going further?
The sun stays at the same height above the flat Earth, and it makes circles around us. And it circles around, and when it's a certain distance away, it disappears due to perspective and atmospheric opacity. Now, a lot of people, when they're hearing this for the first time, they're short-circuiting. They're like, this is too much, too much to think about. And it is. You have to really sit down. If you watch some of the videos, you'll be like, oh, I get it. And then you can recreate those experiments yourself. People say,
that's interesting.
You can watch the sunset and then stand up real quick and watch it set again. That proves that the Earth is a ball. No, it doesn't. Because the same that falls into the works on a ball and works on a flat Earth. I've done an experiment, and many people have, where you can make a light set due to perspective and then raise the camera, and there it is again. And that proves nothing other than that you're increasing your height, which increases the angular size and your angular view over things.
Got it. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna get stuck on these videos. Now I have a few more questions I want to ask you. That definitely I want some answers to, and hopefully you have them. If not, no worries. Now, with the flat Earth, gravity does exist, correct?
So gravity is not a thing that is caused by mass. It's never been proven. There's supposedly one experiment where these guys got two giant marble balls and hung them in a garage and looked at them through a telescope, and they attracted something to it, which has just been proven to be utter nonsense. And if you look at all of the things with the moon and the sun and gravity, it doesn't work. To make gravity work in space, they have to make up like 94% dark matter, which has never been seen. It's utter nonsense. Here, most flat earthers will say it's just density and buoyancy. You drop your pen, the pen falls to the floor because it's more dense than the air around it. But the question is, what establishes a down? And the answer is electromagnetism. We live in this electromagnetic world. Tesla proved that by pulling free energy out of the ground and trying to transmit it to the world, which he did in the World's Fair, but then JP Morgan shot him down because there's no way to build customers for it. So you ever turn on an old television that has, where the dust is attracted to it, and you can actually see the dust get pulled into the screen? That's an electrostatic charge. Or if you put a balloon and you put a charge on it, rub a balloon on your head and then run a faucet.
It sticks.
Yeah. Run a faucet. Slow, you get a nice slow stream running out of a faucet, and then hold the balloon next to the faucet, and the water will curve around the balloon. All right, that's an electrostatic charge. The electrostatic charge of the Earth is very weak, but it establishes a down, and then buoyancy and density sort everything out. A lead weight will go below water because it's heavier. A balloon, helium balloon, will go up because it's lighter than the air around it. So it's buoyancy and density with an electrostatic charge, which basically sets the down. Many flat earthers will say it's just buoyancy and density, and you don't need this charge. I don't buy into that, and you can prove that there is an electrostatic charge to the Earth. The other thing is, nobody now has an anti-gravity device, but we do have maglev trains, and they're defying gravity or electromagnetism. They're using electromagnetism to raise up. So So you use a force against a.
So they're not defying electromagnetism because they're based on that, correct?
They're using electromagnetism to float. Okay.
Right.
So it's not a gravity thing; it's electromagnetism. I'm going to give you another link to a video. There's I think his name's Bosley, who did an amazing report. He did an amazing report on the great anti-gravitic flying ships of the 1850s. In the 1850s, there were these massive ships appearing over America and all around the world. And then all of a sudden they disappeared shortly after that.
And at that time frame, the talk of aliens was non-existent, correct?
So, again, I don't know when the talk of aliens started, but I believe that they're going to try to pull a great alien deception on us to unite the world into a one world government. And that's a whole nother show. But
Right.
there's a difference between aliens and extraterrestrials. Words have meanings. Extraterrestrial is extra land, territory, extra land. I believe that there are extraterrestrials among us daily that are coming from across the flat plane. If you're a believer in like in aliens, Area 51, well, what if those aliens weren't incomprehensible light years away and they were just a couple thousand miles away over Antarctica? And they could come and go in a day. We could go to an extraterrestrial world and back probably in the same day with a modern aircraft.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I have another question with the spherical and in the flat Earth. Now, in the spherical ball, we have what they say is a core, lava-filled. It heats up the world. Now, I mean, it's factually proven that there is lava underneath, our crust, and it, comes out of volcanoes and stuff like that. How is that explained on a flat Earth?
Well, I'll agree with you. It's factually proven that there is lava. We're seeing that in Hawaii right now. Is lava coming from the core of the Earth? Well, the deepest hole ever dug in the history of mankind is just short of 8 miles. It's in Russia. It's called the Mole Hole. And when they get down to about 8 miles, they hit an impenetrable barrier. Some call it hard water that they can't even get through. It's just impenetrable. They can't get any deeper. So anything below 8 miles is pure speculation and pseudoscience. So they say that, our magnetic fields are due to the liquid molten core. Well, there's a thing called the Curie point. Any metal that melts loses its magnetism. There's no metal that you can test anywhere that's magnetic that maintains its magnetism when it's melted. So the entire molten metal core of the Earth producing the magnetic field and the fact that it's moving around is, again, pseudoscience. It's a belief system. It's a religion.
That's very, very interesting. That definitely is one that I'm like very... I think that's one of the most mind-blowing pieces so far for me, at least. Great, man. Hey, thank you so much for having all these answers, man. I think it's great. And I encourage everybody out there that questions it or doesn't believe it, just check it out. Give it some time and see what you find and see if it changes your perspective. It's definitely... I'm
sorry to interrupt. Most of us that are speaking out like I am all have the same story. We tried to debunk flat Earth seriously. And by trying to debunk it doesn't mean go to Google, search flat Earth theory, and what'll happen is the first 5 pages will be the Flat Earth Society, which we are not part of. It's a government-run website. Which has
the Flat Earth Society is a government-run website?
Absolutely, it is. It has a little bit of flat Earth truth in it and a bunch of nonsense. And then people like Vsauce and Neil deGrasse Tyson and all of these other actors will use that as a reference. So flat earthers believe gravity is caused by the Earth raising up 9.8 meters per second. And the problem with that is, eventually they'll be going so fast. None of us believe that. The Earth is stationary. It does not move. And I've explained how things fall down.
Right.
I mean, for you to believe in gravity, you believe that there's an ocean upside down with a cruise ship on it, upside down from us right now, with people on it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. I mean, even when that simple sentence there alone speaks volumes about the idea that a lot of what we are told that to believe, and that we do believe, that many of us believe, it's really just here, this is information, believe it, and a lot of it sounds crazy. Like, even if you just think about things beyond flat Earth, like, black holes and all these other things, wormholes or whatever, a lot of these things are very absurd ideas in theory.
Right.
So the idea that, the Earth is flat, like someone commented on one of my other videos and they said, the fact that you guys believe the Earth is flat, which again, personally, I don't believe, but I'm open-minded to it. But I was, having a conversation about it. So he put, the fact that anybody believes the Earth is flat, proves that people are crazy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, my biggest response to people, like I said, I don't personally believe the Earth is flat, but it could be. My response is always, well, I've personally never been to space. I've never seen the Earth as a spherical ball with my own eyes, so I have no actual proof that it's a globe, that it's a ball, it's a sphere. So I know that I could be completely wrong.
I like when you say, I don't know. That's the best answer in the world. I don't know when you don't know. People say, the simple answer is, well, all the other things we see in the sky are balls. Well, one, we don't know that they're balls. We're looking through them at a telescope.
The only way you can see it's a ball is if you can see it in 3-dimensional.
If you look at the balls on a pool table, does that mean the pool table is a ball too? It's a ridiculous argument.
Yeah.
In itself.
I agree. Matt, go ahead.
Good. Now, I wanted to just talk about Southern flights for just a quick second. So get your globe out and look at it, and you got the tip of Africa, Johannesburg, Africa, the tip of South America, Chile, and you got Australia and New Zealand. They're all at the bottom of the ball. And if you wanted to travel between Chile to Australia, the quickest route is straight over Antarctica, or just stay at the same latitude and go across that short distance over there. But flights go from South America, they go all the way up to North America, they go over to Dubai, and then they go back down, which is this big U shape, which is ridiculous. But if you look at it on a flat Earth map, it's a straight line. So the big argument there is, on a flat Earth, the trip from Santiago, Chile to Australia is so far, there's no way a plane could do it in that amount of time. And there's two answers as to why a plane can do it. One, there's only one company that does direct flights. I believe it's Qantas. There's only one type of plane that'll do it, and we don't know how fast this plane can fly. It could fly well faster than the speed of sound. The speed of sound is not a barrier, and flying over the Southern Ocean, nobody would hear the sonic boom, which is a real thing. The other thing is, at 40,000 feet, when you're in the outer southern lands, there's a 200 to 300 mile an hour circular wind that goes around the plane of the Earth. And when a plane gets in that, they got a 200, 300 mile an hour tailwind, which makes up all of that different time, even if the plane's only flying at 550 miles per hour. So there are many answers to the things that people think are things that make the flat Earth impossible.
Wow. Yeah, that's really, really good information, man.
Yeah.
You know what? I had this thought, and I've seen videos where they take this very powerful laser and then they project it, in a straight line, supposedly. And I've seen both sides, to be honest. I've seen full-blown high-production videos of the flat Earth, or the Earth is flat. You can tell by this laser beam, there's no change in the elevation or there's no curvature, right? And then I've seen, on the flip side, a full video of the exact same experiment where there is a curvature, where you see the laser beam go up in elevation on, a boat. And so that just kind of confuses me. The fact that there are the two exact...
All right, so I know you're talking about the Discovery Channel. And I'm gonna link a video that you must watch about that Discovery Channel show. That show we caught them in complete and utter fakery. One, if you watch, the laser beam is on the side of the boat, and then 2 seconds later, it's on the top of the boat. So who leveled the laser? Because that laser's off a fraction of a millimeter off of level, it's going to show curvature because it's sloping upwards.
Right.
When the helicopter went behind the land, it was facing in the wrong direction when it came up, and then the birds that flew across the scene, there were the same birds pasted in there twice. It was a total cut and paste fake job. We caught them 6 ways to Sunday faking it, and then the girl, Cat Bob or whatever her name is, she goes, "I'm not a scientist," and then we'll show you a whole bunch of videos where she is a scientist. They're claiming that these are just ordinary people off the street. They're actors performing a skit, and we caught them in total fakery. The truth is, would you agree, any sphere, no matter what size, has a trigonometric formula that would calculate the amount of curvature over distance? Of course, there's a formula that can calculate. So we live on a ball, supposedly 24,901 miles around. And the formula for curvature, the agreed upon formula in mainstream science, is approximately 8 inches per mile squared. So 1 mile is 8 inches drop. 2 miles, the world is sloping away a little bit faster. So it's 2 times 2 times 8 is 32 inches. 3 miles is 3 times 3 times 3 times 8, 70. 3 times 3 times 8, 72 inches. So at 3 miles, there's 6 feet of drop. This is agreed upon in the mainstream mainstream. So if you're 6 feet tall, standing at the water's edge, your horizon is 3 miles away, and then then you can't see any farther, and the ocean will drop away behind that. But now with modern optics, I have a P1000 super zoom camera by Nikon. It has 125 times zoom. We can zoom in on things at water level that should be hundreds and thousands of feet below the curvature. We're now adding infrared lenses to these cameras, and we're seeing things at 500 or 1,000 miles away from just a little bit of altitude. And if you plug that into spherical geometry, there's miles and miles and miles of curvature missing. So the fact that we can see things, infrared and regular, that should be behind thousands of feet of curvature, proves that the world is observably and obviously flat.
That's interesting. I've always thought, since I saw those 2 experiments from both sides, why don't just a group of both sides get together, both with laser beams, go on a flat plane that's like miles apart, and both go walk away from each other equal distance, to where there would be a significant curvature, or at least enough to prove, and then get the laser beams and point them directly at each other. Both do the exact same leveling, make sure that it's completely straight, then walk to each other's sides and check. And for some reason, I don't know, that's just something that's always been in my mind. Like, why do people always kind of create their own side experiments? Why don't they come together to really find out? But that's just a thought in my mind.
It's a little there's a lot to doing these experiments. The weather conditions and the leveling, and there's a lot to it. National Geographic recently did an experiment at the Salton Sea in California, where they were going to do a laser experiment across the water. And they had this whole thing set up, and a bunch of flat earthers were meeting them there to observe. And they were trying to. They had these reflective balloons that they were going to do that they were going to raise them up, I think, 30 feet in the air to spot them from the other side. And while they're trying to just locate where each camp is, one of the flat earthers with their P900 camera zoomed in and said, "I see the balloons." And the people at and he could see them. He's proven that he could see them. And the National Geographic people said, "No, you can't, because they're below the curve of the Earth. That's impossible." And they ignored it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look that up. Wow, man, you gave a lot of great information. I actually don't have any more questions. I didn't want to ask all the basic questions that everybody's already asked. I just asked the ones that have caught my attention to ask. But yeah, I don't think I have anything else to ask you. Is there anything else that you want to say on the flat Earth before we wrap it up?
Yeah, let me tell people, if you believe me just from this conversation, you're a little too trusting. You need to go look for yourself, and don't let anyone tell you that YouTube isn't a good place. YouTube is a place that has information. You have to sort it out. There's nonsense up there, and there's real stuff.
Just the general internet.
There's people that have, it's like the world. Everything's out there. You have to sort it out. There's people that have done the work for you, and then you can go recreate these experiments yourself. What I've done at theflatearthpodcast.com, we have must-see videos there. So if you, on YouTube, YouTube's doing a major purge. They're censoring a lot of this stuff. We've uploaded most of the videos, most of the good, not most of them, but lots of the good videos to theflatearthpodcast.com. Our Facebook page, The Flat Earth Podcast, and just go to the videos on that page, and you could just look, that's an interesting question, and start watching them. Take the time and really dig in, and there's nobody that has effectively researched Flat Earth that comes away thinking they live on a spinning ball.
Wow. Well, there you guys have it. A lot of great information. The links will be provided in the comments below or in the description. Check both parts, and I might have them in both sections. David Weiss, I appreciate your time. Thank you for having the conversation with me.
And subscribe to the Flat Earth Podcast on iTunes, everything on iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to your podcast player on your phone has it. Check it out. I guarantee that if you listen to the first 5 episodes, we have 30 episodes up now, start from the beginning, that if you go through 5, you too will be a flat earther.
Hey, there you go, guys.
And also coming up, I don't know when this is going to air, on November 15th and 16th, if you're in the area of Denver, with the Flat Earth International Conference is happening on Thursday and Friday, the 15th and 16th of November, 2018. You can get tickets at theflatearthpodcast.com. Just click there, or fe2018.com is the website for the conference. If you're not a flat earther and you come, guaranteed you will be when you leave.
There you guys go. Man, hey, that was great information. Thank you so much for your time, for, the intelligence, and again, for just having a conversation with me. Like I said in the beginning, I think it's just great that people who have different ideologies can come together, have a conversation, not tear each other down, not hate each other. So, for me, I still have my personal perspectives, though David Weiss here has given me so much new information to look into that, again, I've always been open-minded, but I'm even more open-minded to the idea now. So I really
appreciate people like you. You're doing, you got great messages in your videos. You have a great attitude, and you don't have the ego. Like when someone tells me I'm wrong, people make comments like, "Oh, the Earth is not flat," and blah blah blah, and they don't throw anything. It's an empty comment. But if you say the Earth isn't flat because A, B, and C, and spell it out, I'll take that comment. I'll pin it to the top. I'll respond to it. We'll have a dialogue, and that's where we go. I don't mind changing my mind based on new information.
Same here. I wholeheartedly agree with that. So thank you again, David. I appreciate it. Make sure you guys follow him on his social media. Do you have any social media you want to plug besides the podcast?
My Twitter is the FE Podcast, and all the links are on theflatearthpodcast.com.
Awesome. Hey, thank you so much for your time, man. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this helped expand and illuminate you guys a little bit. Until next time, you guys. See you guys soon. Peace.